Roki Sasaki has met with the Los Angeles Dodgers, and the trade market is beginning to heat up. That and more ahead here at the Upside. Alrighty, welcome into MLB Hot Stove Daily here at the Upside Sports Network. Appreciate you guys joining us. My name is Michael. If you're new here, make sure you guys hit that like and subscribe. We're only a few subscribers away from hitting our goal of 2,100 by the end of the year. Let's see if we can get there. But appreciate you guys taking the time out and joining us early on a Sunday morning before NFL kickoffs. As far as Roki Sasaki, he's probably the top free agent starting pitcher left on the market. The one ace that's really left on the market anyway, and is only going to make roughly $5 million as far as a bonus. Now, every team, has the ability to bring him in. There's only going to be probably 10 teams that he's going to meet with here. He's already met with several of them, including the Yankees, Mets, Cubs, Rangers. Now the Los Angeles Dodgers are part of that group as well. I'm sure he's met with others. But Sasaki's going to go wherever he feels is the best fit for him as the player. The overwhelming favorite this entire time has been the Los Angeles Dodgers, primarily because it is a West Coast team. He has two players of which he would be playing with on that team in Shohei Ohtani and Yamamoto that he just won the World Baseball Classic with a year ago. So he's already comfortable with a couple of guys on the team, hence the reason why they're considered the favorite. And they just won the World Series. They're considered a favorite again for the World Series this year. You can see all the reasons why the Dodgers are considered the favorite from the outside looking in. But that doesn't mean he's going to go there. I think pretty much there's like 4 or 5 teams that have a legitimate case here to possibly woo Sasaki to their team, those being the San Diego Padres, Seattle Mariners, San Francisco Giants, and the Texas Rangers. Now, the Yankees, Cubs, and Mets, I still think have a chance, but I wouldn't put their chances at 0, but I'd put their chances at very slim compared to the others I mentioned. but we'll see where he goes. But we actually have some headlines that at least he's continuing these meetings. He doesn't necessarily have this list narrowed down yet. He's still taking his first round of meetings. It sounds like the way the process is going, from the way the reporters are framing the discussion around him, is that every team basically sent a pitch to Sasaki before they even met him. He sorted through that list and narrowed it down to teams that he would actually meet with, on his turf, wherever he was going to take those meetings, whether it be on the East Coast or the West Coast. Then, after that first round of meetings, there'd be a group of teams that are still left in the running. Then he would meet those teams individually in their cities, see what the facilities look like, see what the team looks like, all those kinds of things. So we're still in the first round here of Sasaki. Remember, he's not going to be signing until at least the 15th of January, sometime between the 15th and the 23rd. That's when he will be able to sign, because the posting window closes on the 23rd, and the new international bonus pool structure anyway will hit on the 15th. So he'll sign somewhere in between there. So we're still early in this process, but it's good to see more teams being included in this mix than just the LA Dodgers. But the Dodgers do get their meeting, and we'll see who advances to round 2. Appreciate you guys joining us. Got 30 of you guys with us already. Appreciate you joining us. Anthony, Holly, Paranormal, Sam, thank you for joining us. Let's see here. Paranormal, hey there, what's the news around MLB? Right now, we're still looking at Sasaki. We'll get into some of the trade news here in just a moment. Sam, Giants weren't willing to give opt-outs. Yes, they were trying to keep that deal pretty much straightforward. There were some deferrals from what I heard in the Giants offer, but the money was certainly there. They were at the $250 threshold, it sounds like, along with the Blue Jays, but it sounds like Corbin Burns ultimately decided to go elsewhere. Anthony, I'm making a prediction. I don't think Roki signs with the teams that have been reported. For me, does with what Corbin Burns just did. I think he surprised everybody and either goes to Detroit or St. Louis. I like that. I don't think that'll happen. I think the teams aren't necessarily volunteering that information. Reporters are sussing that out on their own. The only time you're ever hearing about these meetings is after they've happened, and if somebody specifically asks about it. We saw that specifically with Chris Young with the Texas Rangers a few days ago. Let's see here. Jonathan, good morning. And if for some reason the Mets don't sign Alonso, would the Mets turn to Bregman? And secondly, would the Mets go full mode for Vlad Jr.? I think he's looking $300 to $500 million contract. I don't think he's going to be looking at 500. I do think he's looking certainly more at 3. I think he's looking closer to 4, honestly, at this point. But as far as your analysis there, if they don't get Alonso, do they pivot to Bregman? That's in the cards. I think that's one possibility they're actively discussing. That and the possibility of bringing not just one of those guys, but both of those guys back to the Mets. Think of this offseason the way the Mets almost brought in Carlos Correa a couple years ago. Correa wasn't seen as a lock to go to the Mets. In fact, he was kind of a cherry on top, the coup de grace, the finishing piece of that team. They had the financial wherewithal to go out there and spend, and they were going to spend. Ultimately, the medicals came back negative, and so he took a lesser deal with the Twins. If the Twins retain some of that money and takes away some of the risk that the Mets really were worried about in that contract, we could see them even go the trade route for a Carlos Correa again. But back to my point here, they could do both, bringing back Alonso to give some better lineup versatility and some depth to that lineup, some protection for Juan Soto in there, and bring in Alex Bregman as well. As for them going full out for a Vlad Jr., I think everybody will next year that's in the market for a first base DH player, and the Mets would be one such team. One other team that I expect to really push hard now for Pete Alonso, harder than I ever thought they were going to, is the San Francisco Giants. Every time I pick up another article out there, read another article, see another headline, see the commentary around him, I just get the feeling that the Giants are starting to circle the wagons around bringing in Pete Alonso. Now, like I said, this would be a great power bat for them, the greatest power bat that they've had since Barry Bonds. That's saying something. They need some better lineup alternatives. The question I would have for the Giants is, what does this mean for them long term? Yes, they have the financial wherewithal to go out there and make this move and still make additional moves after this. I'm not saying this is a finishing move by any means. But what I am saying is Pete Alonso is a very limited player for a team just beginning this growth spurt here. For a team that's going to be competing in the same division with the Dodgers, the Diamondbacks, and the Padres. Even if they bring in Pete Alonso, I still think they finish behind all 3 of those teams. Now, of course, next year they could go after Kyle Tucker, Bo Bichette, Vlad Jr., another starting pitcher, a number of other guys. But for me, the Alonso signing for the Giants wouldn't solve their issues long term. Now, short term, they'd be a much better team. It certainly brings some excitement to that Giants franchise. The one thing I would say about bringing in Alonso is that it would solidify the Giants as a very different team than at any point under Farhan Zaidi. And I guess to just get that stench off of that organization probably be the best case scenario for them because they missed so many top flight free agents when Farhan was in charge, whether it be Machado, Harper, Bogarts, Correa, Judge. There's several guys that ultimately decided to pass up on the Giants, and they decided to go with the 1 year plus an option route and just be the fallback option for every single free agent who didn't get the contract they wanted in free agency that time around. They would go there for a year, opt out, and then you see Carlos Rodon take that mega deal with the Yankees. You see that this year with Blake Snell. So Giants need to turn the page from that, and they think they did so already with Willy Adames. But if they really want to cement it, getting Pete Alonso would certainly help in that regard. So the only reason I would be for this if I'm a Giants fan, one, the power, and two, it just gets us completely away from the Farhan Zaidi era and maybe changes the narrative around that organization. Appreciate you guys joining us today. Make sure you guys hit that like and subscribe. We're less than 15 subscribers away from hitting our goal of 2,100 by the end of the year. If you wouldn't mind helping us out, we'd greatly appreciate it. Hit that like and subscribe. Let's catch up on a few of your comments here. Welcome in, Paranormal. John, welcome back. Any Yankee news today? Not too much. They're still looking at bullpen and third base. Nobody really connected in the overnight hours as far as a fit there. But they are looking at Chafin. They are looking at Tanner Scott as an eighth inning guy. They are looking at several options now at third base, not just Arenado or the in-house options. They've been connected to Bregman, but not recently. They're also looking in the trade market as well for other names besides Nolan Arenado. Thanks for going live more than most. It's so helpful. I do try. I try on the weekends to do a few more lives than I usually do during the week. During the week, I work open to close, so I don't usually get home until 7:30, 8 o'clock at night to try to have a quick bite for dinner, and then I get on as quick as I can thereafter. So around 9 o'clock during the week is usually when we go live. During the weekend, I try to do one at least in the morning. Sometime between 9 and 11, I try to hop on. And then, depending on how the news of the day breaks down, I'll try to do one in the mid-afternoon, 3, 4 o'clock, and then another one later in the evening. But I appreciate you guys enjoying this content. And if you guys are new here, if you're enjoying the content like Paranormal, hit that like and subscribe. Appreciate you guys doing that for us. Anthony, I'm still saying this. I don't think the Mets get Vlad Jr. I'm still thinking he goes to either the Yankees or Atlanta. Atlanta, not a chance. They don't have the financial resources to go after Vlad Jr. Now, as far as the Yankees, that's a legitimate team for him next year. I don't think they'll trade for him before the season. Maybe maybe at the deadline. But that would be a tough trade for the Blue Jays to try to get that one done. But when you're trying to maximize value, I don't think it really matters when you're going into a retool, rebuild situation. You just get the best players, the best trade you possibly can, and make it work. But I'd definitely rule out the Braves for going after Vlad Jr. B. Skrills, welcome back. Good afternoon from Northeast Ohio. Thank you for joining us. Any news on Alex Bregman going to Detroit? Well, we've continued to see more momentum around the Detroit Tigers and a number of different guys this offseason. Bringing in Gleyber Torres, I think, was one of the first dominoes that we're going to see over the next couple of weeks with what they decide to do. Bregman looks like the next one if they can get him done. Colt Keith has moved over to first base. Sounds like Spencer Torkelson will start the year in AAA with an opportunity to break onto the big league roster if he has a great spring, which I do doubt. I think they'll try to bring in Bregman. If they don't, they're still looking at a closer. They're looking at Kirby Yates on the free agent market. If they're unable to get that one done, I would anticipate a trade for Ryan Presley. Let's see here. Paranormal. As a Yankees fan, not worried too much on Roki because we need another bat and get those lefties in the bullpen. Anyway, it's taking long. It is taking a little bit time, but we knew that coming in. We knew he wasn't going to sign until the 15th, so we knew he was going to take his time. So no rush to really, figure out what's going on with Roki. It's just nice to see if your team, is in the news, at least meeting with him. I think that's the best you could really hope for. For instance, if the Rangers came out there and said, oh yeah, our meeting was great. Our meeting was exactly what we hoped for. We really think we convinced him. If a team came out there saying something like that, I'm not really buying it. So just knowing that he's meeting with teams and that he might be meeting with your team is about as good a news as you can hope for right now. But as far as the Yankees' needs, they do need another bat. I think they still need to add an impact bat to that lineup to really solidify that the changes they've made this offseason, and then an eighth-inning bullpen option as well. Maybe a lefty in the bullpen like Chafin would be a nice get for them as well. Appreciate you guys joining us today. Try to catch up on some of these comments here. Roy, good morning, baseball fans. Hoping Roki goes elsewhere than the Dodgers. Better be prepared for another meltdown. It's Joker. It's likely not, more likely than not. Sasaki signs with the Dodgers. Dodgers don't need Sasaki depth. Yes and no. They have probably the top end pitching all figured out. The 1 through 4 is better than anybody else's 1 through 4. But I would argue they still need to bring in some more starting pitching there. If I'm the Dodgers, they have they have Gonsolin there. They have a couple other guys that they can plug in that number 5 spot. But for me, they're not nearly as deep as they were, say, 5, 6 years ago, when they had 7 or 8 guys they could easily plug into that number 5 spot and call it good, and have a really strong rotation going forward if they did have injuries. Last year, you saw the lack of depth in that starting pitching due to injury and poor performance from a couple of their guys, so they made the trade for Jack Flaherty, and they really only had 3 starters going into the postseason. They made it work. They used the bullpen on that 4th day, but I still think the Dodgers are the favorite here for Roki. If they don't bring him in, I think there is a very good chance they bring back Kershaw or go after a Scherzer, somebody along those lines to round out that staff. Player time, just my thoughts, Sasaki and someone else, given the opportunity, would go to LA. Championships that would come because of the deferrals. I mean, going to the Dodgers, you would be joining probably the prohibitive favorite in Major League Baseball to win a World Series. Those mean something. I mean, you play to win the game, as Herm Edwards would always say. And, money is really nice. And I do think with the money being equal across the board, what's the one thing that probably matters most to you after securing the money is winning. And being out on the West Coast isn't going to hurt either. Being comfortable with the team that you're on isn't going to hurt either. That's why the Dodgers are seen as the prohibitive favorite. Bill, welcome in. Mike, the Mets can't afford to lose Alonso. I think they've improved this offseason. As far as your comment there, though, I do get the point. I would still need to bring in Alonso or somebody else to at least provide some lineup protection there for Juan Soto. When you just made the addition of Soto, you don't stop there and say, our work is done. Let's go ahead and call it good. I would continue to add to this team. Drew, Scott, and the Giants, maybe. I'm not really buying that one. I think there's too many teams out there at the top of the market. For instance, the Yankees, Dodgers, Rangers, Cubs, Tigers are all looking for bullpen help. I think the Giants have done a nice job improving their team this offseason, but I don't think they're necessarily looking at a Tanner Scott as hard as some of those other teams, and so I don't think they'll bid as high as some of those other teams, so I think he goes elsewhere. Estrada, Sasaki contract will be a minor league contract, no deferrals needed, true. It will be that $5.1, $5.4 million bonus somewhere in there. Anthony, question, can you see a guy like Alex Bregman going to Seattle because he's from the West Coast if you can't go to any of the teams in California? No, I don't see that one at all. I think he's going to look for a team where he can compete. Remember, this is a player that's never been out of the American League Championship Series at any point since he's reached the major leagues. Now, the Mariners certainly would be a great team as far as a pitching staff. Ballpark would be a little bit of a challenge, and he would really give them a nice jolt offensively. I'm not saying he wouldn't be a great improvement for that lineup, but they don't have the financial resources. In order to get the financial resources, they would have to trade Luis Castillo and other pieces to save a little bit of money, and they would be able to not bring in another person to help build out that lineup. I don't think there's a chance he goes to Seattle, but I get the point there. Being a West Coast, being a West Coast guy, would Seattle be close enough to make it work? From a geography standpoint, maybe, but I don't think that matters a hill of beans to a player like Alex Bregman. I think he's looking to get the contract that he wants, of course, first and foremost, and 2, does he have a chance to win? Again, he's always been in the playoffs. He's always made it to the American League Championship Series. Players like that prefer to continue to keep winning, and so we'll see what happens. Anthony, this is an honest question. Could Sasaki shock everybody and choose a team that is well known for developing pitching? I understand it's unrealistic like Miami. No. In fact, the Marlins and Rockies are 2 teams I would say are prohibitively out of the running for him. But as far as other teams that develop pitching that have smaller markets, for instance, we'll use the Cleveland Guardians. I think the Guardians have a chance there. But do I think it's any better than any of the other teams I've mentioned? No, I don't. But we'll see where he goes. Let's go ahead and head over to X and see if anything else is happening at the moment before we dig into the trade talk. There's kind of your mock draft right now, according to Baseball America. Ethan Holiday, I know a couple of you guys were asking about this one the other day, is currently favored as the number 1 pick. Jace Laviolette is another one that I see in a bunch of mocks going number 1. I think it's going to come down to one of those 2 guys for the number 1 spot, but I'm thinking Laviolette might be the guy they ultimately settle on. Holiday, I think, is just going to have slightly less of a ceiling than Laviolette, but we'll see. Let's see if there's anything else happening. Blue Jays showed, quote-unquote, interest in Gleyber Torres. Not a surprise if they're in there for Bregman. If they miss on Bregman, maybe their fallback option was Glaber, but with Bregman still out there on the market, obviously they couldn't get something done until they get a decision from Bregman, especially after make the trade for Jimenez as well. See if there's anything else going before we get into some of the trade talk here. Angels and Nationals were among the teams in on Glaber as well. We reported on that about a week ago. And not too much else. Okay, let's get back into some of this trade talk that we've been discussing for the better part of the last week anyway. Now with some of the top names finally gone off the free agent market, top names that remain are Alex Bregman on the hitting side, along with Santander and Pete Alonso. On the pitching side, you're left with guys like Nick Pivetta, Andrew Heaney, players like that. None of those guys are aces on a staff, and the position player group is so thin, and it sounds like Bregman's down to just a couple of teams. If you're looking to improve your lineup or add an impact bat, doesn't look like it's going to come via free agency. So what does the trade market look like? Late last night, we had a live where we discussed quite a few different trade ideas and teams to keep an eye out for. So let's check in on a few of those. First, we'll look at the Baltimore Orioles. There's not an ace in the free agent market that they can go out there and go after right now. They are said to favor Dylan Cease in trade right now, but I think Luis Castillo would fit their needs long term. If they don't get an ace during this offseason, say they go the Andrew Heaney route and try to go more depth guys and just try to make it work at least in the beginning of the season. When they get to the trade deadline, then they could try to revisit the trades, going to the trade market again, and then they might have a chance to bring in a Sandy Alcantara, a Pablo Lopez. But the Orioles are one team I would absolutely keep an eye on for the next team to make a big trade that you might not expect to see coming. For instance, the Twins are looking to offload Carlos Correa's contract right now in the offseason before they move Pablo Lopez. So if they move Correa before spring training, maybe we get a Pablo Lopez trade early, but I think this could take a little bit of time to develop, which is why I'm saying trade deadline, keep an eye on Minnesota and the Baltimore Orioles. Another team to keep an eye on here as we kind of look for teams that might do some trades is the San Diego Padres. They have 3 players going into their final year of free agency that have big roles on their team. 2 starting pitchers, Dylan Cease, Michael King, and then a position player, Luis Arraez. I think they deal 2 of the 3. I think Dylan Cease is the easiest to move of that group. I think they can try to get a long-term extension done with Michael King, easier than they could Dylan Cease. Cease is going to demand top dollar, and the Padres haven't shown a willingness to pay top dollar, at least to this point. And so I would keep an eye on where Dylan Cease could go. Keep an eye on the Orioles if they get a deal done before spring training. For Luis Arraez, I think there are going to be a number of teams that could use his bat. I don't think he's traditionally valued by front offices, though, but that bat will play. Putting him in front of any power hitter in any lineup is really going to jump up that RBI total and help out their offense entirely. Would really like to see him go to a team that has a really good number 2 in that lineup. For instance, a guy like Corey Seager in Texas, or Aaron Judge in New York, or Yordan Alvarez in Houston. A team that has that type of a power hitter, that type of a competitor in their lineup, I think would be perfect to have Luis Arraez as the leadoff hitter. Is it a great fit defensively for any of these teams? No. Luis Arraez really doesn't have a place on the field itself, aside from just hitter. He is that good offensively when it comes to contact rate, avoiding the strikeout, getting on base, moving runners over, all those things he's exemplary at, and we'll see if he does get moved somewhere before spring training. But I would bet a certain amount of money anyway that they move one, if not both of those guys before spring training. Another team to keep an eye on is the Seattle Mariners. They still have done nothing to address their team. And their president of baseball ops anyway, Jerry DiPoto, is Trader Jerry. He's always trying to make moves, and we'll see what they do. They have a self-imposed $15 million budget. That's not enough to go after a big-time bat, which is what they need right now. So their one chip to try to be able to do so is Luis Castillo. I would expect a trade there. The one news item that we do have about that is that the Boston Red Sox have checked in on Luis Castillo. They've discussed a trade that would send Yoshida and Casas to Seattle, 2 offensive pieces, upgrading the offense for the Mariners, in exchange for Luis Castillo. The interesting part of this trade is that it would probably hinge on Bregman going to Boston as well. Then you move Devers over to first base while Bregman plays third. Casas no longer has a home and has already been rumored in trade rumors already. Yoshida's contract, I'm sure Boston would love to get out from under anyway. You get the deal done here, and even though they've already made 3 additions to their starting rotation, Castillo would still be probably their second best pitcher, maybe their third best pitcher in that rotation. You can never have enough pitching, and we'll see what they decide to do. But those are some teams to kind of keep an eye on as far as trades. Another one is the Arizona Diamondbacks. What are they going to do with Jordan Montgomery? With the signing of Corbin Burns, they're looking to upgrade their bullpen, maybe moving on from Jordan Montgomery and just getting out from whatever money they can ultimately get on or get out from underneath is the best way to go. Say they make a trade and get the Chicago Cubs to eat half of that contract on Jordan Montgomery while the Diamondbacks eat the other $10 million, even if it's for just a low A-ball prospect to make it work. That way the Diamondbacks get something out of the trade. That would be something I could see the Diamondbacks doing to kind of save a little bit of money to where they can add a reliever at the back end. They've been connected to Kirby Yates. His market is certainly heating up. I would expect that to come to a head very quickly here, especially with the number of teams that are in there. You got to think the contract figures that are being thrown around are in the realm of what he would be willing to sign for. It's just a matter of where does he want to play next year. I think he's probably the first reliever off the board between him and Tanner Scott. All right, let's catch up on a few of these comments here and see where we're at. Anthony, are there any young controllable hitters that Miami could trade for that are blocked because of a major league team being loaded they are currently a part of? Rangers certainly have a number of guys that are blocked at the major league level. Ezekiel Duran, Josh Smith, Justin Foscue, among others, would be players that could fit that description. Do I think there's necessarily a great fit between the two teams currently? Maybe for a reliever, a lower end reliever, say a seventh inning guy, but not a high leverage arm. I don't think Miami has really the pieces that the Rangers are looking for in a trade. There's a few other teams out there that have very similar types of issues, but for instance, if the Detroit Tigers bring in Alex Bregman, Jace Young would be blocked, but I don't think they would move him. I just don't think there's a trade out there for major league ready talent at this point that a team is willing to get rid of unless it's for an impact piece. Now, if the Marlins had something like that they could offer out of their bullpen, I think the Rangers would do it. On the starting pitching side, they don't have enough health and durability right now in that rotation to really trade any of it for real value. Let's see what happens around the trade deadline. If Alcantara comes back healthy and proves himself to be healthy and back to being the former, Cy Young Award winner that we all expect him to be, then they could do something like that. But as it stands right now, I just don't see them getting a big trade done at this point. I think they've already exhausted two of their trades options that they were going to get done. They might be able to move one of their late inning relievers, Nardi, players like that. But I don't expect a big return for any of those guys. Greg, welcome in. Bregman was not in the ALCS last year. Trying to remember who was. Oh, that's right. He was in there for 7 straight years, if I remember correctly, though. But was it the Guardians and the Yankees in the ALCS? It's been so long already, I even forget this year. But Bregman's basically been there every single year, is my point. And so he wants to continue that trend. Roy, do Cardinals eat more of Arenado's contract to make a trade? They were willing to eat, I believe, 15% of that deal on his current contract to get a deal done with Houston. That deal, of course, was blocked. Maybe a team would convince the Cardinals to eat a little bit more if they're willing to give up more prospects to do so. I'm sure the Cardinals would at least discuss that. But we're seeing a lot of articles right now about the Cardinals and about the need to move on from Nolan Arenado just from a pure lineup construction standpoint to allow those young guys to take more at-bats. And I think we will see a trade of Arenado before the beginning of the season. To who remains to be seen. Let's see here. Ethan, Cowboys better lose for Ashton Jonty. Honestly, they need to lose for the draft picks position anyway, and they've struggled to do that. They can't even lose right at this point. Bill, Upside Sports Network is the best baseball news site. The only one close is Foul Territory, but you're right, most others are more into being glorified variety show. Couldn't agree more with you, Bill. As far as the MLB Network, I keep kind of bragging on them because they're the ones that chose to go this way with their programming. For whatever reason, if it's finances, whatever the reason is, Hot Stove, when it first started out, you had Ken Rosenthal in studio every single day to keep the show on track, keeping it newsworthy. Then you'd have 4 other reporters in the first hour. Now it's just John Paul Morosi and a bunch of games and talking about email and soundboard clips, and it's a variety show. Then you get to MLB Tonight, which is the only other original programming they have right now, and it's literally just highlight clips and just guys patting each other on the back. There's no analysis, there's no speculation, there's no rumors, there's hardly any reporters on there breaking any news or at least espousing any of the news out there, and you really don't get that kind of coverage anymore. Foul Territory, you do mention, that's where Ken Rosenthal went when MLB Network started this whole send-off of content, and he kind of started that whole thing up there with a couple of other people, and that's one of the other newsworthy sites that are still out there, and really they're not fan-run, they're player-run and news-run. So they don't really have to worry about, say, the overhead of a network trying to make ends meet. They were trying to do something fun for baseball and trying to make things work and have a news organization dedicated to baseball, which is what they did with Foul Territory. It started out, funnily enough, as a YouTube channel. So, just like we are here, we're happy to discuss any and all rumors that we see out there, pass them along to you as long as they are correct, as long as it's not just some bogus guy talking on some private blog saying, hey, the Giants are expected to do this. If there's not any newsworthiness to it, we're not going to bring it to you. Let's see here. Ethan, I stopped paying for cable, waste of money. Honestly, I have as well. I do pay for the network right now just because I wanted to watch the coverage during the winter meetings. Let's just say it was disappointing, to say the least. Anyway. Anthony, with Luis at the second base, you're just talking about it as the way you cover up his defensive deficiencies by having a shortstop and first base. That's great defensively. Yes, I mean, that would be one way to cover up Ariza's deficiencies. Let's see, you're trying to catch up on a few of these. Thank you for that, Paranormal. Appreciate that. Can they move Montgomery to the bullpen? I don't think he would pitch well out of the bullpen. Anthony, with his injuries the past few seasons, Jordan Montgomery, do you think it would be good and best for him to move to the bullpen where he doesn't have a ton of innings on his arm? No, I think he's best served having a full offseason to prepare for the season and go into spring training and be prepared. And I think he'll be back to the Jordan Montgomery we all expect. This is literally one bad year. One bad year with a team that really threw him under the bus, especially at the end of the year. Even the owner came out against him. And he was a pitcher that just beat them in the World Series a year before. So I think he's still got a lot left in the tank, and I think he just needs to get out of Arizona. And whoever does get him, I think is going to get a good starting pitcher on a one-year deal, and we'll see, where he goes. I think there's a number of teams that would be interested in him. I think the team like the A's, the Marlins could use him because they need to increase their salary to meet requirements for revenue sharing. The Cubs are still looking for a number 5 starter. The Rangers have worked well with him in the past. Yankees are said to have some level of interest. Whether that means the Diamondbacks have to take back Stroman remains to be seen. But there are a number of teams that could use a guy like Jordan Montgomery. Willard, Houston Astros could trade for Jordan Montgomery. Would that be a surprise? I would think so. I don't have that one in my bingo card or on my bingo card, but a trade there would kind of make sense as far as the pieces going the other way. You trade Presley to the Diamondbacks, you send Montgomery back the other way. I just don't see how Houston would want Montgomery. I do think they need more depth, yes, but I think they're trying to move Presley to save money, not necessarily to bring in a starting pitcher with similar money issues. I think they're looking to save money so they can add an outfielder like Santander. So I don't think it would necessarily solve the issues that they have. Now, if they move, say, Presley there for an outfielder like a McCarthy, that might make more sense. Anthony, that's what I'm saying. I think the Rangers can have a combination trade with Declan Corn and Andrew Norty to add to their bullpen. Yes, but none of those are pieces that make a huge difference to Texas' bullpen right now. They've already made those mid-tier additions to that bullpen. Now they're looking for a dominant, A-level closer like Kirby Yates or somebody of that ilk to come in. None of the Marlins relievers really qualify for that category. Player time, could you rank Kirby Yates, please? As far as closers in the game right now, I'd probably say borderline top 5. I think Clase proved himself to be number 1 last year. Diaz at times can be in that top 5, depending on if he's having a great year or not. I'm sure I'm missing a few here, but Helsley had a great year last year. I would probably put him in my top 10. Yates, I think, is borderline top 5. Lucas, watching the stream from a 7-hour train to France. That's a nice train ride. You'll have to, tell us about it next time you're on anyway. Appreciate you joining us, though. John, what's the Rangers' current closer situation? They don't have one. Right now, I guess you would say their closer is probably Robert Garcia, who's never done it before, or Josh Sborz, who's going to start the season injured. But the closer for the team is not currently on the roster. I think they're going to add a guy like Kirby Yates. If they don't bring him in, maybe they go after Tanner Scott, but I think they're gearing up for a possible trade. That's kind of what we reported on last night about the Rangers shutting down Ezekiel Duran. They wanted to get him some productive at-bats in Winter League ball. He played 25 games, hit for about 287, got his bat to work it again the way they had expected to, get him feeling good about his swing again, which is what they hoped for. He did have a sore hamstring, so that's part of the reason why there was a mutual decision between the two to shut things down. And Jeff Wilson of the DLLS Rangers podcast network anyway said that he doesn't see a trade happening, quote unquote, for now. What to me this means is very similar to the Nathaniel Lowe situation here, is that they didn't see a trade happening when they made the move for Jake Berger right now, but they found a way to get the deal done. Now I'm thinking they're going to do something similar here with Ezekiel Duran because they have very similar players already on the roster filling that role on the team. I like Ezekiel Duran. I'm hoping he stays with the Rangers. But if they don't bring in Kirby Yates via free agency, I think we could see a trade of Ezekiel Duran to bring in a closer. But again, that closer right now is not on the roster. Appreciate that. Thank you, Player Time. Thank you guys for joining us. Welcome back, George. Do you see the Giants trading Mike Yaz and Lamont Wade in separate deals and signing Anthony Santander? Honestly, I wouldn't rule that one out. I think they are looking to move on from Yaz at this point. That outfield has been a little bit of a black hole for years now, and they made one solid addition last year going the international route, but of course he ended the season on the injured list. I think they're still looking to make some additions. Santander, I haven't heard too often with the Giants, but that would be a nice addition for them. Let's see, player time. Yates and Bregman to Detroit would be sweet. There have been rumors about Detroit getting both of those guys. Yates has had interest, or has drawn interest from the Tigers. Bregman, of course, is one of the two finalists between the Tigers and Red Sox. We'll see where he goes, but the Tigers could swing both of those. Lucas, I think Robert Garcia has the potential to be dominant. I would agree there. He's got 5 years left to control. We haven't really seen him, scratch the surface of what he really has. Last year was his first real season at the big league level from start to finish, and he showed he was very effective in that time. Having another year at the major league level, who knows what his growth is going to look like. The one thing I will say about Texas, the way they built up this bullpen, the pieces that they had in that bullpen last year were not good enough, is the point that they were trying to make. And so some of the deals that they're making, for instance, Sean Armstrong, helps raise the overall floor of that team. Armstrong himself is not a great option in the bullpen, but he does raise the level of what the players they had last year and say, hey, if you want to break into this bullpen next year, you want to beat Sean Armstrong out for a spot, you're going to have to beat him for a spot, not just say, you're the young guy, we'll give it to you. So I like what the Rangers have done in that way. Rashad, welcome back. Welcome in, Drew. Rashad, thoughts on Casey Mize and his fit on the Tigers? Because I just don't see it. I'm not completely against that take either. I like what the Tigers have done. I thought the decision last year for them not to move on from Scoball when they could have gotten a huge trade package was a mistake. Obviously, I was wrong. They made the right decision in keeping Scoball, and I like the way this Tigers team is trending. As far as Mize goes, they have some good young starters coming, I will say this. But I'm just not sure of Mize either. I don't think that they know either in their own mind as to where he fits on this team long term. But when they go into the season, I think he's going to be a valuable piece for that team as far as how they're going to utilize him compared to some of the younger pieces that they're going to have in that rotation. Is it an awkward fit as far as like whether you invest in him long term? Sure, but that's what we kind of saw with Scobell, and it worked out in their favor. Maybe something happens again with Mize in the same way. Drew, Matos can cover right field and Santander can DH. Makes some sense. I could see that one. Santander will slow down. Isn't exactly a great defender out there, but certainly plays up with the bat there. Roy, I don't see the market for Flaherty being robust because off his performance in playoffs with Orioles and Dodgers. If I were Flaherty, I would re-sign the Dodgers on a 1-year contract and win. Honestly, I think he's looking for the long-term deal, and I think he will get it from a team like the Blue Jays who misses out on whoever they're ultimately targeting this offseason. Every single target they've tried for has ended up going elsewhere. The last one on the list right now appears to be Alex Bregman. Sounds like they finished as an also ran in that one as well. Thank you, Player Time. Like and subscribe, just like he says. If you are new here, make sure you guys hit that like and subscribe. We'd greatly appreciate that. Let's go ahead and update our page here and just see if anything else is happening this morning. Doesn't look like it there. John, are the Yankees looking at Bregman for third base? They were when they missed out, or right after the Bregman or the Bellinger trade and the signing of Goldschmidt. They looked into bringing in Alex Bregman. Finances sound like the big issue there is that it might not have gone anywhere past the hey, let's consider it phase, and understandably so for finance reasons, trying to avoid the Cohen tax. Am I for that decision? No, I still think they need an impact bat. If it's not going to be Bregman, it needs to be somebody. But it sounds like they're going to go a little bit cheaper and a little bit younger at third base. But we'll see who they go for. I wouldn't rule out the possibility of Nolan Arenado if they can offload the Stroman deal and get Arenado's contract taken down a little bit by the Cardinals. Alrighty, appreciate you guys joining us. Going to go ahead and head out for now anyway. Got an early lunch with the folks. Kind of have some fun with them. And then we'll be live again later this evening. Make sure you guys hit that like and subscribe. And we'll update you guys if there's anything big that happens. Say if, Yates signs, we'll probably come and do a live as well. But I am expecting some activity today. So we'll see what happens. We got a surprise deal at late night. It was 1 o'clock in the morning, Saturday morning, when we got the deal for Corbin Burnes. And if there is something like that happening again, we'll be here live for you guys. So make sure you guys hit that like and subscribe. Follow us over on X at UpsideSN and on Facebook, Upside Sports Network. Our early Rookie of the Year prediction. Good question. I think Roman Anthony's going to have a real chance at it with the Boston Red Sox. There's a few players that kind of fit that description. But I think it's still too early because you have to see how position battles are going to kind of finish or peter themselves out. But I would say Roman Anthony's got a legitimate chance with the Boston Red Sox. On the NL side, Andrew Painter, if Luzardo goes down injured, I think he could have a legitimate chance at Rookie of the Year as well. Player time. I can say how badly I want the. Can I say how badly I want the Yankees to lose? Of course, you can be a fan of your favorite team. Alrighty. Appreciate you guys joining us. Y'all have a great one, and we'll be live later on this afternoon. Tato, I want the Rangers to trade Gray's salary and make a trade for Pablo Lopez. He's only earning $8.5 this year and is really very controllable. I know Twins want to get rid of some contracts there. Yes, the Twins are looking to offload some deals. I don't think they're looking to desperately move off of Lopez, but we'll see. I think they're looking to offload Correa's deal before anything else. As far as trading Gray, using that money and spending it on Pablo Lopez, that would be a massive upgrade to the Rangers rotation. Just to kind of delve into what that would look like, let me update this here, just to give you an idea of what a trade would look like if something like that were to happen. We'll do the Twins. We'll do the Rangers, just to kind of fulfill this comment here before we head out. Pablo Lopez to the Rangers, value 47.8. Ouch. Rangers, you'd have to give up somebody of this level if you're looking for a one-for-one deal. I don't think they would do that anyway. So let's say they put in Rosario. Let's say they put in Josh Smith would be the major league player that I think would be the deal go in this deal. Maybe a Bradford as well. Give them another starter for their rotation right now. And see how close we get there. That's actually not bad. And then maybe Ezekiel Duran to just kind of finish it off. Or go another young piece. But let's just throw in another young player instead. Let's throw in Ozuna. Just cuz. What do you guys think? Would you do that if you're Texas? Would you do that if you're Minnesota? If I'm Texas, I would consider it. I'm not sure I would do it, but I would consider it. If I'm the Twins, I'd probably do that deal in a heartbeat, mainly because I'd like the talent that I'm getting. I'm getting some major league guys in there with some long-term ability, some controllability there as well. And I'm getting two guys to really hope on. Ozuna could be the sleeper in this trade as well. But, Tato, I get your comment there. As Pablo Lopez would be a great get for the Rangers. They do like pitching in Texas. Randall, I noticed Sasaki hasn't talked to the Orioles, and there's no good reason he should. Honestly, they have had a rough time as far as getting a number one in there. They do have a good young team there, but I think he's still going out to the West Coast and the Dodgers anyway. Not Josh Smith. Well, you're going to have to include somebody. If you don't include Josh Smith, you're going to have to include, somebody closer. Say Foskew's the guy instead. I don't think the Twins would be as enamored with Foskew, but, to me, Smith hasn't proven he can hit left-handed pitching, and so that's why I'd be willing to include him in there, because his value is really high off of the year he just had, and trade him before his value starts to depreciate because of the less controllability of his deal, because everybody realizes the holes in his game. He really deteriorated in the second half of the year. That's why I would include Josh Smith in this deal and maximize his value. I'd rather give Justin Foskew a chance at the major league level because I think he can hit both right and left-handed pitching. I just think he needs an everyday spot in the lineup, whether that be as a platoon at first base with Jake Berger or whatever they decide to do. But I would rather give Justin Foskew some run at the big league level and maximize the value of Josh Smith. I like Josh Smith. I just think we've seen the best of what Josh Smith can be. A very good defensively versatile player. That is a valuable role on a team. Somebody who has good contact rates. Hits for a little power, but not a lot. but he's also not going to mess it up in the out or mess it up in the infield for you defensively wherever you decide to play him. Gives you some versatility in the lineup. You can bat him up in the order or down. But the one issue he does have is that he's really only had one half of a good season. First half he was great last year for the Rangers. Second half he really struggled. Playing time, I'm guessing, caught up to him. He just kind of wore down. I imagine a full season will probably be a little bit better now that he's got his legs underneath him for a full 162 season. But he still struggles against left-handed pitching. He can always grow. But for me, I just don't think there's much growth left in him. He's already 24. Or 27 anyway. He's going to hit free agency at 31. And I don't think his value via trade is going to be any higher than it is now. That's why I would prefer him over somebody else. Anthony, any chance Mets and D-backs do some type of problem deal, such as McNeil or Marte for Jordan Montgomery? Maybe a rare Yankees-Mets deal for Montgomery of McNeil for Stroman? No, and no. I do get the idea there, trading one problem for another. So let's look at the one you proposed first. McNeil or Marte for Montgomery. They're not going to want Marte, first and foremost, because they already have an outfield overfill right now. They don't need to bring him in. As far as McNeil, I just don't see his fit on this team. He's not going to play second. He's not going to play short on this team, so where does he play? You'd rather have Jordan Lawler be able to get some playing time over bringing in a McNeil anyway. They already brought in Naylor at first base. Where does McNeil play? As far as the trade going back the other way for Jordan Montgomery, I think he'd be a good fit for the Mets as far as somebody they could hope on for that rotation. But I just don't see a fit there as far as return Marte or McNeil. The other part of that one, the rare Yankees-Mets deal, McNeil for Stroman, possibly would be a fit there as far as a fit for solving third base or second base, putting McNeil at second, Chisholm stays over there at third. Stroman would be another pitcher that they could bring in and solve some issues for the Mets. But you're not going to see a trade between those teams, especially this offseason. The wounds are still fresh after stealing away their second best player in Juan Soto. They ain't going to make a deal like that. I'm not saying they shouldn't make a deal like that. I'm just saying that people are, real human beings, and they're not going to make a deal with their arch nemesis who just took their second best player. Those wounds are still raw. Say this move, say in 5, 6, 7 years, they make a similar type of an offer. McNeil for Stroman at that point. Maybe then they could discuss it, but it's still too soon. The wound is still too fresh, and they're not going to do something like that. Let's see here. Ken, less than an average pitcher now. He is less than average as far as Stroman, but I do like Jordan Montgomery. I think he's going to have a nice rebound season for wherever he goes, as long as he gets traded before spring training and have a normal off season to prepare. Alrighty, appreciate you guys joining us. I really got to get going, though. Folks are messaging me. I need to get going. Going to have lunch with them. I will have another live later this evening. Hopefully we'll have some news to discuss. I'm hoping a Kirby Yates signing, maybe some Alex Bregman news, but we'll see what happens. We'll possibly get some trade talk as well this evening. Thank you guys for joining us. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year, everybody.